They told me he had no chance. Machines kept him breathing. Billionaire or not, the doctors had already given up. But I stayed, I prayed, and when I kissed him, something no one expected happened. His eyes fluttered open, everyone gasped. That moment changed everything. Hey, I'm about to share a story that still feels like a dream, but every word is true. If you believe in miracles, love, or just need a reason to hope again, stick around. Don't forget to like and follow. You won't want to miss how this ends. I'm not a doctor. I'm not rich. You won't see my name in the news or find me in some fancy office. I'm just me, a woman who's lived a quiet life, worked hard, kept her head down, and held on to faith even when it didn't make sense to. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to get caught up in something big, let alone something that would change lives. Definitely not something involving a billionaire. But life doesn't always ask for permission before turning the page. It just flips it. This story isn't about money or status. It's about something much deeper. Something that can't be measured by machines or explained by textbooks. Love, not the kind you see in movies with candlelit dinners and dramatic proposals. I'm talking about the kind of love that sees a soul when the world sees a body. The kind that stays when others walk away. The kind that waits, hopes, prays, even when no one else believes there's anything left to hope for. I met him at his worst. He wasn't walking around in a suit with cameras following him. He wasn't giving speeches or signing million-dollar deals. Number, when I first saw him, he was lying in a hospital bed, still, hooked to machines. A man people whispered about in hallways. That's the one, the billionaire. But they didn't say it with hope. They said it with pity, like he was already gone. Everyone else saw a man the world had given up on. But I saw something else. I didn't plan to be part of his story, and I never imagined he'd become such a big part of mine. But what happened next? It changed everything. For him, for me, for both of us. I worked the evening shift at this high-end hospital uptown. You know the kind, where everything smells like bleach and money. The walls are silent, the floors shine like glass, and the patients have last names you'd recognize from buildings, banks, and business magazines. I wasn't a nurse or a doctor. I was just part of the cleanup crew. My job was to sweep, mop, keep things neat, and stay invisible. But there was this one room, room 509. I remember it clearly. It always felt different. The blinds were always half closed. The machines inside made a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat you could hear through the wall. At first, I didn't know who was inside. I'd go in, clean quietly, and leave just as fast. Then I started noticing the nurses. They whispered when they walked past. One even said, "He used to own half the skyline," like he was a legend lying in that bed. That's when I learned the truth. The man inside was a billionaire, a big one. Businesses, jets, mansions, he had it all. But now he couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even open his eyes. They said he'd been in a terrible car crash, head trauma, brain swelling. He slipped into a coma and never came back. Most of the staff treated him like a shell, just another room to pass by. But something about him caught my heart. I don't know why. Maybe it was the way the light hit his face in the afternoon. Maybe it was how lonely he looked, even unconscious. Or maybe it was just that I saw someone lying there, still fighting, even if the world said he couldn't win. I started lingering after my shift, sitting by the window for a few minutes, talking to him in a whisper. Nothing big, just stories about my day. Little things. I didn't expect anything to come from it. I just thought maybe he needed company. Everyone deserves to feel like someone still sees them, even when they're sleeping. That's how it started. A mop, a hallway, a silent man in a room full of machines, and me, just trying to be kind in a place that had already given up on him. At first, all I knew was what people whispered. They said he was once one of the richest, most respected men in the country, owned tech companies, luxury hotels, and even had his hand in politics. I didn't know all the details, but you could feel the weight of it when you stood next to him. Even lying in that bed, he carried this presence. I used to ask questions quietly, nothing too direct, just casual curiosity when nurses were on break. One older nurse, kind-hearted and open, told me more than the others ever did. She said before the accident, he was set to close one of the biggest deals in the country, something that would have changed the industry forever. But right before it happened, someone from his own team, someone he trusted like family, turned on him, leaked private documents, tried to steal the deal. He found out that same night. He was furious, betrayed, and heartbroken. Apparently, he got into his car in the middle of the night and just drove. No driver, no assistant, just him and the road. And that's when it happened. A crash. They said it looked like he didn't even try to hit the brakes. Either he was distracted, or maybe part of him just didn't care anymore. When they pulled him out of the wreckage, his body was broken, but not beyond repair. His brain, though, that was another story. Swelling, bleeding, trauma in places that doctors said almost never heal. He went into a coma almost immediately, and he never woke up. That was months before I started working there. What stuck with me was what the nurse said next. He had everything, but at the end of the day, he had no one. Not a single family member visited. No close friends, just lawyers and assistants who dropped in for updates and disappeared. I couldn't imagine it, surrounded by people when you're winning and forgotten when you fall. That part hit me hard, because I've seen that before, not in some billionaire's world, but in mine. I've seen people get tossed aside when they're no longer useful. I've felt that silence when no one checks in. Maybe that's why I kept going back to his room. Not because he was rich or famous, but because I knew what it was like to feel alone. And maybe part of me believed that deep down, even if his body was still, his spirit could hear me. That somehow, in all that silence, my voice was reaching through. I didn't know it then, but learning his story would only make me more determined to stay by his side. Because if the world could forget someone like him, what chance did the rest of us have? But I wasn't going to let that happen. Not on my watch. I didn't grow up with much. We lived in a two-room house with thin walls and a leaking roof. My mama worked double shifts at a laundry, and my brother and I used to walk miles just to get to school. Life wasn't cruel, just hard. You learn early on how to stretch a dollar and how to smile even when your belly's empty. My brother, he was my heart. We were just a year apart, and we did everything together. He was smart, too, brighter than I ever was. Always had dreams of becoming a doctor. But dreams cost money, and we didn't have enough of either, money or time. When he got sick, we couldn't afford the best hospital. We begged, borrowed, did everything we could, but it wasn't enough. I watched him fade away, and I never forgot what that powerlessness felt like. So when I walked into that hospital years later and saw that billionaire man, alone, hooked to machines, quiet as stone, it stirred something deep in me. I wasn't looking to be a hero. I wasn't thinking, oh, let me save this man. No, it wasn't like that. I just saw someone who looked like he'd been left behind, just like my brother was, just like I had been, and maybe I was still carrying that pain with me, still wishing someone had done more back then. So this time, I did. I showed up. I sat beside him and spoke like he could hear me. I told him about the rain that morning, or how the cafeteria had burnt the cornbread again. I talked to him like he was awake. even though I knew he wasn't. Because that's the thing about pain. It can either close your heart or crack it wide open. Mine cracked open. I didn't have riches to give him. I didn't have degrees or titles, but I had my voice, my heart, my time, and maybe that was enough. I didn't plan on getting attached. At first, I just stayed a few minutes after my shift, but minutes turned into more. I started looking forward to those quiet moments in room 509. While the world outside rushed by, that room became a kind of stillness I didn't know I needed. I talked to him like he was a friend, told him about the annoying security guard who always chewed gum too loud, or how the lady in the lobby wore the same bright pink hat every day. I read him poems I found in old books, sometimes ones I wrote myself. Other times, I just sat beside him in silence, the kind that doesn't feel awkward, just calm. One night, I brought in a small flower from home, just a simple white lily from the yard. I placed it in a cup beside his bed. Didn't think much of it. But the next day, one of the nurses told me she'd noticed the room felt warmer. She smiled, said, "You've got him looking cared for." After that, I started bringing little things, a clean blanket, a gospel song on my phone, even a soft towel I used to gently wipe his forehead during the hot afternoons. I'd hum sometimes while I worked. Nothing fancy, just the kind of songs my mama used to sing while she stirred pots in the kitchen. It was healing, not just for him, but for me too. The nurses teased me a little, called me his angel. Some said it was sweet. Others said I was wasting my time. But I didn't mind. They didn't know what I knew. They didn't feel what I felt. I could swear some days his fingers moved, just slightly. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was something. But I held on to it like it mattered, because when the whole world gives up on someone, it only takes one person to hold on and keep hope alive. And I chose to be that one person. It was a Thursday. I'll never forget that day. The weather outside was dark and stormy, like the sky itself knew something was about to shift. I came in for my usual shift, but the moment I walked through the front doors, I could tell something was different. The nurses looked tense, quieter than usual. The lights in room 509 were dimmer, and the machines didn't sound the same. One of the senior doctors was standing outside his door with a clipboard in hand, talking in a low voice to a younger nurse. I pretended not to listen, but I caught the words anyway. "There's been no activity in days. It's time to notify the legal team. We'll discuss removing life support in the morning." My heart dropped. I waited until no one was watching and slipped inside his room. He looked the same, peaceful, still, but this time he looked farther away, like a light had dimmed just a little more. I pulled the chair close and sat beside him, holding his hand like I always did, even though it had never moved. And I broke down. I cried for him, for my brother, for everyone who never got a second chance. And I spoke like I always had, but this time I said goodbye. Told him I hoped he knew someone cared, that he wasn't just a name or a news story, that he was loved, even if just by me. Then, without even thinking, I leaned over and kissed his forehead. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was just real, honest. A kiss full of everything I couldn't say. I whispered, "If you can hear me, fight. Please." I stood up to leave, but then I heard it. A beep. Not the usual steady rhythm, a new one. Faster, sharper. I turned around and saw his fingers twitch. Then his eyelids fluttered. I froze, unsure if I was dreaming. The monitors started going crazy. Within seconds, nurses and doctors rushed in, pushing me gently to the side. But before they moved me out completely, I looked back one more time, and his eyes were open, staring right at me. They say sometimes the body remembers before the mind does. And in that moment, watching his eyes flicker open, I knew something impossible had just happened. The room exploded into motion. Nurses called out numbers. Doctors shouted for scans and tests. I stood frozen against the wall, heart pounding louder than the machines. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was just the girl with the mop. But no one stopped me. Maybe they were too shocked. Maybe they saw it too, that something bigger than medicine had just occurred. One of the monitors that had been quiet for days suddenly showed brain activity, stronger than they'd seen since the accident. One nurse gasped. Another had tears in her eyes. The doctor who had just spoken about turning off life support stood speechless, staring at the screen like he'd just seen a ghost. And him. He didn't speak at first, just blinked slowly. His lips barely moved. But his eyes, they locked onto mine like he recognized me. Like all those days I sat and talked to him weren't lost in silence after all. I couldn't believe it. I felt dizzy, overwhelmed, unsure if I was imagining everything. But then I heard it. His voice. Barely a whisper, hoarse, raw. "Don't go." That's what he said. Just 2 words, but they knocked the breath out of me. A nurse grabbed my arm gently and said I needed to give the doctor space. But before I left, he reached for my hand, weakly, shakily, but he reached, and I held it. They later said it was unexplainable, that cases like his don't just wake up, that there was no medical reason for what had happened. But I didn't need science to explain it. I knew what it was. It was a miracle. Not the flashy lightning strike kind, no angels singing, no dramatic music. Just a quiet, steady miracle born out of love, patience, and one simple kiss from someone who refused to stop believing. The hospital was never the same after that night. Word spread fast. At first, it was just whispers between staff. "He woke up," they said, "that billionaire in 509." Then the news reached administration, and soon doctors from other departments were coming by, reviewing charts, trying to make sense of it all. They called it spontaneous recovery. Some used terms like rare neurological rebound or extremely delayed consciousness, but no one could really explain it. Not fully, not truthfully, because deep down, everyone knew something happened in that room that science couldn't measure. They kept him under close observation for weeks. Physical therapy started almost immediately. Slowly, he began to move more, speak more. Every day, he got stronger, and every day, someone new came in just to get a glimpse of the man who came back. As for me, I thought they'd fire me. After all, I wasn't supposed to be there after hours. But instead, something completely unexpected happened. One of the doctors called me in, shook my hand, and said, "Whatever you did, thank you." Then I was offered a new position, one with better hours, more pay, and real benefits. They said they needed more people like me. I didn't know what to say. I wasn't used to being seen, let alone celebrated. Still, I didn't visit him again right away. I figured he had people now, doctors, therapists, lawyers, maybe even family coming out of the woodwork. I didn't want to be in the way. I had my moment, and I was content with that. But what surprised me most was what came a few weeks later, a handwritten letter. No fancy stamp, no assistant dropping it off. Just a simple envelope with my name on it. Inside, in shaky but clear handwriting, he wrote, "I heard every word. I don't know how, but I did. You saved me. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." I cried when I read it. Not because he remembered, but because I knew then that love, real, patient, selfless love, never goes unheard. Months passed. Life moved on. I kept working, quietly and gratefully. My new position came with more responsibility, but I didn't mind. I felt stronger, more confident somehow, like maybe I had a purpose beyond what I ever imagined for myself. Still, I thought about him sometimes. wondered how he was doing. I saw glimpses of his recovery in hospital updates, discreet mentions in internal memos. I never asked questions. I didn't want to cross any lines. I'd told myself our chapter had closed. Then one day, out of nowhere, I got an envelope. No hospital stamp, no business address, just my name. Again, inside was a simple invitation. A small event, private, no headlines, no cameras. Just a quiet gathering. A thank you dinner, the note said. It was signed by him. I almost didn't go. My heart raced the whole drive there. What would I even say? Would he remember me clearly? Would I just be a face from a foggy memory? But when I walked in, there he was, standing, smiling, alive. His eyes lit up the moment he saw me. He walked, slowly but on his own, and came straight over. No hesitation. And then, without a word, he hugged me. Not the kind of hug you give out of politeness. This one was real, grateful, full of meaning. We sat and talked for what felt like hours. He told me everything he could remember from those quiet days in room 509. Not just the kiss, but the stories, the humming, the flowers. He remembered the way I held his hand, the way I whispered, "You're not alone." I couldn't move, he said, but I felt it. Every word kept me anchored. I didn't know what to say. I just smiled through tears. That night I didn't feel like the cleaner or the poor girl from the wrong side of town. I felt seen, respected, loved, and it reminded me, sometimes the smallest things, time, presence, kindness, can echo louder than the biggest gestures. It's been a while since that night, since the kiss, since the miracle. People still ask me what really happened. They want a headline, a scientific explanation, something that makes sense. But I just smile and say, sometimes love speaks louder than logic. I wasn't special. I didn't have power or wealth or titles. All I had was my heart, and I gave it freely. That's all he needed. Looking back now, I realize it wasn't just about saving him. In some way, he saved me too. He reminded me that being present, really present, with someone in their darkest moment can be more powerful than any medicine. If you're listening to this, maybe you're going through something. Maybe you feel invisible or like your kindness doesn't matter. But it does, because love doesn't need a spotlight to shine. It just needs someone willing to show up when no one else will. And sometimes, one kiss, one word, one heart can change everything. If this story touched you, share it. The world needs more reminders that kindness matters. Follow for more true stories of hope, love, and second chances. And remember, never stop believing in what your heart feels, even when the world says it's impossible.